If you want to know the secret to connecting with any audience every time, I'm going to break down one of the most powerful ways to create a connection regardless of who you are and who's in your audience. Connecting with your audience is one of the most powerful strategies anyone can leverage when they're doing a public speaking engagement. But how do you do it? There's a lot of different ways to connect with an audience, and most people do it in the wrong way. I want to show you the simplest, most powerful way for you, regardless of who you are and who your audience is, for them to connect with you as an individual, to be brought into your story, and why this is so important. It's actually interesting. I was reading Kevin Hart's book, and Kevin Hart has this great story about how when he first started doing comedy, he started basically just sharing these funny stories that were made up. And he had these great timing, and he had these great mannerisms and stuff. But his mentor comes up to him afterwards and says, and this was a beautiful thing, he brings other people and says, hey, that guy who just did his set, was he funny? Oh man, he was hilarious. What's his name? Oh, I don't remember his name, but he was hilarious. What did he talk about? I don't remember what he said, but he was hilarious. And he was like, all right, thank you. And what he was basically showing Kevin Hart in this moment was that if people aren't connected with you, they're not gonna remember. They're gonna have a general sense of it was good, it was funny, but they're not gonna remember what to say or how to say it. So here's why this is powerful. You have to learn how to incorporate aspects of your personal story and who you are as a person in every single presentation you do. You have to slip it in, because what Kevin Hart's mentor told him, which is very, very genius, is that if people don't get to know you, if people don't understand who you are, they're not going to care what you have to say. They're not going to be connected to you. And if you want to go to that next level, you got to be able to do it. So let's break down how you can do that so you can become more powerful in the presentations that you give. There is one thing that is universally true that ties all humans together. It takes someone from the inner city of the most impoverished 16, 15-year-old. You take one of those people and you put them with someone who's in the wealthiest suburban 70-year-old age range. And you can say, what can these two people have in common? There's one thing that ties people who maybe on the outside seem like they don't have much in common together. There's a universal thing that ties us together. And it was funny, when I was doing this in a presentation, I had someone said, it's that we all drink water. And I was like, well, yeah, water and food are biological imperatives, right? But that's not what I'm talking about. The one thing that ties us together, regardless of age, political viewpoints, belief systems, stage of where we are in our life, is emotions. Emotions are the universal trait that regardless of who you are and who I am, we know what it feels like. So this is why this is beautiful. The emotion of fear, the emotion of joy, the emotion of struggle, we all can relate to it. For example, if I asked you, how many of you, if you can be honest with yourself, knows what it feels like to feel like you, for some reason, have all the pressure on your shoulders, whether it's from your family or whether it's from your team members, that you're the person that's supposed to drive the ship, that you're supposed to figure everything out, and you feel like you have that pressure, even if it wasn't ever explicitly said. How many of us knows what it feels like to feel like we have an environment that is constricting us, and we know we can be better, but we have to just change the way we're interacting with the world or the world around us so we can get to that level? How many of us knows what it feels like to be at home at night? We should be going to sleep. We know we should, but there's something that keeps us up, and we look at one more video, or we read one more article, or we scroll on social media one more time, and then we do that for what we think will be just 2 minutes. It turns into 2 hours, and we go to sleep so much later than we should. You know, it's even funny. And when you wake up the next morning and you're exhausted, a lot of us say to ourselves, tonight is the night I'm going to go to sleep early. And you convince yourself you're going to go to sleep early, and then for some reason that night you repeat the exact same pattern. See, these are experiences that hit upon an emotional side that most humans will have some type of ability to relate to. So this is how you use this in your presentations. You want to look at aspects of your story, aspects of who you are, not necessarily the specific things that happened, but the emotions behind it. Now, one of the things that's part of my story is I grew up in the projects on welfare in Brooklyn, New York. I grew up in an environment where I saw people get murdered at a young age. I've had friends who went to prison and they've been killed, and it was a very, very tough environment for me. And it was through certain decisions that I made that I was able to get myself out of that and build a successful company and a very, very fulfilling life for myself. I share a version of that story in almost every single presentation that I give. And here's why. There are people in the audience that just because I say New York, they have some connection, some emotional connection to New York, that as soon as I say that, they're connected to me. As soon as I say I grew up on welfare in the projects, I was low income, there's a percentage of the room that's going to connect with me because maybe they grew up in a similar environment. Now, for the people who didn't grow up in that, what they can connect with is the idea, and I'm not going to go into the details of how I flesh this out, but I flesh out the idea of dealing with this struggle and overcoming that struggle to achieve a certain goal. Everyone knows what it feels like to deal with that struggle. Maybe they grew up in a wealthy neighborhood, but maybe they dealt with trying to overcome their mother or father's shadow to become their own version of themselves. Maybe they dealt with a struggle of emotional or mental instability that plagued them, and they had to overcome that to get where they are. All high achievers that I've met, none of them have had a silver spoon in their mouth with no challenges. They've dealt with some form of a struggle. So as long as I tell my story, but connect it to the emotion of overcoming struggle, I use my story to emotionally connect with everyone in the room. And what's cool is that when I speak to folks who are older than me, many times when I share that story, they might see a characteristic trait that they want for their child or a characteristic trait that they want for their grandchild demonstrated in that story, and it emotionally connects them to it. It's really, really powerful when done correctly. Now, when it's done incorrectly, it looks like you're just talking about yourself, which if you bring up a point and it has no meaning to the audience, it's a wasted moment of time. Everything you do, even when I'm talking about myself, is for the benefit of my audience. So when you can actually integrate these emotional connections of your personal story to bring people into you and who you are, so that they can be connected with you, so that they can want to learn what you have to say, so they can be positively impacted by you, that's a beautiful thing. And most speakers totally miss the boat on this. If you want to take your speaking to the next level, if you want to use speaking to connect with your ideal audience, your high quality clients, if you want to build your legend and your industry thought leadership, I'd love to have a conversation with you. Hey, if you like that video, make sure you hit that like button before you go and hit the subscribe button so you can get more of our great content so it goes to the top of the algorithm. And if you head over to Talkadot.com, not only will you get more in-depth resources there to help you with your speaking, but also you'll be able to get a free account for our amazing software tool that helps speakers like you pull leads from your speaking engagements, get data so you can actually have objectifiable information on why you're so good at what you do and how to use that data to book more speaking engagements. If you want to find out what Talkadot is, head over to Talkadot.com. And remember, if you want to talk a lot, head over to Talkadot. See what I did there? Just go to the website. Trust me, it'll make more sense when you're there. I'll see you at the next video.